Nof Clibber, hi friends, Doth Memo here. So recently, the channel Cosmonaut Variety Hour released a video about why Star Wars Rebels sucks. And he makes a few good points. Some are completely true, but some are completely false, and he also makes several points that apply to Clone Wars as well. But he still praises the Clone Wars and refuses to mention those facts, even though these are the reasons he claims it is bad. Side note though, at this time, Rebels Season 4 has not yet been released. The first thing he says is, it's okay to like things, and it's okay to criticize things too. I have no problem with that. I'm all for constructive criticism. I like Star Wars prequels and Rogue One, but I'm not afraid to say that they're not necessarily the best. I don't love A New Hope as much as everyone else, but I still admit it's the second best film of the series. I like Star Wars Rebels, but I won't shy away from admitting that Clone Wars was a better show, but that doesn't mean Star Wars Rebels is bad. The second point I'll address is that he disputes the fact that it is a film for kids and it is for everyone. Now, here's the thing. Star Wars was meant for kids. The original intention was that it was for kids. However, as we all know, that's not how it turned out. Now, Star Wars has begun to take the approach of being for everyone, but it isn't always the case. Now, the majority of the films, Clone Wars and Rebels, are meant for all ages. But things like LEGO Star Wars and Forces of Destiny are clearly meant for kids. But not all Star Wars is meant for kids or all ages. Just look at films like Rogue One and Revenge of the Sith. Those films are relatively dark and clearly meant for older audiences. Kids don't need to see all this death and destruction. Empire is dark, but kids can still see it. Revenge of the Sith, however, was released in the day when Star Wars could still be in the PG rating, but it clearly isn't, and for a good reason. We see all the Jedi die and Anakin burn. 5-year-olds don't need to see that, and Rogue One killed off all its main characters. I mean, I can't speak for people like Jyn or Cassian, but I see kids get attached to people like K2SO and Chirrut, and when they die, it's upsetting. My goal isn't to shame Rogue One for this, but merely point out that Star Wars isn't always directed for everyone. The next point is that no main character or important character dies on screen. Stormtroopers don't count, obviously, unless they've been developed, but they haven't. They're just video game enemies, as he says. Same with Rebel extras. Any important deaths are off screen. That's true, because this show's target demographic is kids. It is meant for all ages, but a lot of people don't really watch the shows once they've reached a certain point because animation usually means for kids. I know people who have said that they don't watch the shows because they're cartoons, and cartoons mean for kids. That includes Clone Wars, by the way. And that's a fact, whether it is Clone Wars or Rebels, though. But in the main saga, we never really see anyone important die on screen except for Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Han Solo. I mean, yes, we see people like Padme and Yoda, but they were peaceful deaths, so it doesn't count. Mace Windu, the Emperor, Jyn, Cassian, Krennic, Tarkin, they all die off screen. And Vader simply dies peacefully. So this point obviously has some bias. His next argument is that it is inconsistent with tone. And it's not really. Yes, certain episodes are inconsistent with one another, but same with the movies in Clone Wars. Empire, Sith, Rogue One are all darker movies, while Phantom Menace, Episode 4, Jedi, they're all lighter and happier films. And with Clone Wars, some episodes are dark, some are lighter. This isn't a bad thing though. It allows the series to try different things. More specifically, his argument is that an episode changes tone quickly. Nope. For the most part, they are tonally consistent. There's probably a couple episodes, but I can't think of any. Episodes are either lighthearted and fun, or some darker stuff. And his example isn't even correct.
But the fact is, this show is incredibly inconsistent with the tone it's trying to portray. And like I said, it's not trying to just be a kid's show. During a single episode, you'll experience the most severe tonal whiplash ever. You'll see a silly scene with Chopper stopping bad guys. Oh, look at the droid, he's so cute, but then immediately after you're gonna see someone getting murdered.
That is simply brief comic relief because the rest of the episode is really dark. You wanna know what is tonally inconsistent though? A movie where Jar Jar bounces around and then later we see someone get stabbed and someone else get cut in half. We see a man slaughter an entire tribe of people out of revenge. Then he jumps around a factory and runs from animals. We see R2 have a fight with droids. Then someone is beheaded. Later we see Obi-Wan fight a droid on a speeder bike in a lizard. Then we see all the Jedi die and Anakin burn. We see droids bickering. Then 2 skeletons burn. We see our main hero stuck in a dumpster with an octopus thing. Then they blow up the Death Star with 13 million people on it and lose Obi-Wan. And in Episode 6, we have things like Leia in a bikini, the Emperor torturing Luke, and then we'll see furry teddy bears take down the Empire in sticks and stones. Then we'll see one of these furry creatures get killed, and we'll cry. Then moments later, we see Chewbacca imitate Tarzan. Even in Clone Wars, some episodes will follow droids on a desert. Then we see other episodes where Darth Maul kills Obi-Wan's girlfriend.
Right. But no, Anakin, she's not my...
Even in the same episode, we'll get a Night Sister try to take the life of beings to gain more power for herself, then switch to Jar Jar doing something stupid. Or how about a shark about to drown Padme as he hunts down the ruler of the world that they're on? Then the problem is solved with spit. My boy! This point is so full of bias because he only calls out rebels on it. His next argument is that stormtroopers are dumb. But there should at least be once when the main villains of the saga aren't dumb. Okay, first off, stormtroopers are dumb. They can't hit anything. And so Rebels continues that because if they had smart stormtroopers, then suddenly they became dumb 2 years later, there'd be some problem. Not just in-universe, but a lot of people would be complaining about that. You can't even deny that, Cosmonaut variety. And not all stormtroopers are dumb. We have Mandalorian stormtroopers, Death Troopers, Sentry droids, ISB agents, who are actually pretty good at their job. Also, I think you forget to mention things like the fact that the battle droids in the Clone Wars are simply dumb comic relief. And they're the main villains! Yeah, we get things like commando droids and droidicas, but those are the equivalent of the Death Troopers or the ISB agents. They're still not the main focus of villains. So here is another point of bias. And they're not really trained well either. Clones are trained from birth by a Mandalorian bounty hunter, and, so yeah, they're skilled. Plus, they're not held back by the Jedi. The Stormtroopers are like battle droids. They're simply there for numbers. Not much is put into their strength as a military. They fight and overwhelm with numbers and Vader. That's how the Empire works. So this point clearly has a bunch of bias and is somewhat false. Speaking of Vader though, his next point is that Vader and Thrawn are even shown to suck at their job. He says even Thrawn can't beat the Rebels. Well, you just need to look at this. Here's the Rebel fleet before the Battle of Adelon. Here's the fleet after. Yeah, Thrawn completely kicks their rear ends. There was 4,000 rebels here at the beginning of this episode. Only 700 escaped. He also claims that Vader gives up. No, he doesn't. Vader is sent in because the Grand Inquisitor failed, and he breaks them. Then the rest of the threat is left to Imperials because Vader has much better things to do than chase around the Ghost Crew. And, as said, you can't have the main characters get killed by villains on the show. And having Vader would cause that to happen. But he shows up for Ahsoka because Ahsoka is a threat. She knows who he is, and he can't allow that to be revealed. He has to take care of her. Which he did.
Although Lord Vader has dealt with the insurgency's Jedi leadership...
So this point is completely false. And his next point is that they don't teach us about the other side of the conflict. That's not true. First off, this show is allowed to take elements from the movies, and that's fair game. Anyone who has seen the movies, more specifically Episode 3 or Episode 6, they know what the other side of the conflict is. Palpatine and Vader are evil. They want complete control of the galaxy, and episodes like The Honorable Ones, Through Imperial Eyes, and Breaking Ranks show us the thoughts of some of the Imperials. They believe in it. Even the episode where they break out Wedge, he reveals he joined the Empire because he believed in it. So here is yet another point that is false. He also claims that the Grand Inquisitor isn't shown to be competent. Simply looks at episodes like Call to Action or Empire Day. He takes care of the rebels, and any episode he's in, he sends the rebels running. Except for the finale of Season 1, of course. The two Inquisitors are not that bad. It turns the Inquisitorius group into like a cult or something, which is kind of interesting, and the Vader comic is exploring that now. And they bring new skills to the table. I do agree with him, though, about how they're like the rehash of the original villain. But I don't mind it. I don't think that it's bad. Besides, they're in only 7 episodes. About 31% of the season. That particular season, of course. Plus, They fool Ezra and almost capture Ahsoka in Future the Force, so they're not incompetent either, like he claims. He also goes on to say that Kanan and Rex get over their problems real easily.
Here's the thing, Kanan should never fully get over the clones. He should always be a little wary of them.
No, not really. First off, the entire arc of rediscovering the clones, Kanan is very reluctant to even be around them. And he almost bloody kills them. Twice! Then, in the next 2 episodes, whatever screen time they share, they're bickering and disagreeing on how to best train Ezra. The next episode they're in, they have 2 interactions. And they don't bicker much because either they're trying to assemble their plan, or they're in the heat of battle. Then the next episode, they really get into it. And through that, they begin to realize each other is not that bad. Now, maybe Cosmonaut variety is correct, and Kanan should never really get over the clones. But first off, Rex never followed Order 66, and showed Kanan that he removed his chip, which caused the problem. Therefore, Kanan really has no true reason to be wary of Rex. Second, Rex has proven his loyalty to Kanan and the Ghost Crew multiple times. And third, possibly more importantly, we're never told that Kanan is never wary of Rex. We're shown that they can get along and work together, but that doesn't mean he isn't skeptical deep down. It's not the focus of the story. We're shown that he has a problem with them, and that's all we need to know. So here we have an incorrect point. He also says that the plot of every episode is, well, I'll let you hear for yourself.
There's nothing to take away from it. In each episode, the rebels have to get some kind of advantage over the Empire. They make a plan that doesn't sound like it'll work, and during the plan something goes awry, but by the end of it all, the heroes emerge with some kind of victory. This is how 90% of the episodes in this show go. It's a formula that gets very old, very fast.
First off, that just isn't true. I did some research. 59% of the episodes follow the formula where the good guys have a plan, things go bad, and they either come out with a new advantage or they get crushed. However, I looked at the Clone Wars and found out that 74% of the episodes follow their pattern of the good guys have a plan or a task. Things go wrong, either the good guys win and the bad guys are dealt with or escape because of plot, or the good guys are crushed and barely escape, or killed in some instances. Looks like this point has some Clone Wars bias and some pretty much incorrect information. And also, this idea comes from George Lucas, FYI. His idea of a rebellion origin was like the Onderon rebels in the Clone Wars. Hit and run tactics, slowly gaining resources till we get to Rogue One and A New Hope. Fun fact for you. Anyway, he also says there's nothing deep out of the show, whereas Clone Wars often did. First off, Clone Wars always opened up with the fortune cookie, and Rebels doesn't. Second off, there are often themes that come out of here, such as these quotes. Once again, he is wrong. And he says that one of the most complex ideas is whether they should be good or bad. Possibly. That depends on how it is portrayed and your point of view. I'd have to agree with him that it is one of the most complex things out of the show. But because it is actually complex the way it is presented to us. It's not just, oh, do I want to be good or do I want to be bad? It's, he is taught 2 different logical things. Kanan has been teaching him for 2 seasons, and he's learned a lot there. But then when Maul shows up, he makes a lot of good points with his different point of view. And Ezra has to decide which will serve his purpose better. And he's gotten kind of to a gray area at this point. Second off, this point is biased because this is a franchise where both trilogies have built up to this very question. The climax point of Revenge of the Sith is if Anakin should choose Mace Windu or the Emperor, and he chooses the dark side. Now, say what you want, that's just the prequels, but in Return of the Jedi, part of the original trilogy, the climax of this film is whether Luke should choose the dark side or the light side, and he chooses the light side, and in the end, Anakin chooses the light side too. Once again, biased, he now begins attacking the characters of this show. He says this about Sabine.
She's a tough-as-nails ex-bounty hunter that used to work with space gangsters. She's an expert hand-to-hand combatant, marksman, and demolitionist. She's a talented artist, and she's pretty, but she likes to keep to herself and doesn't really trust anyone. She's also a Mandalorian, and she has a lightsaber, even though she's not a Jedi, except her lightsaber is black, so it's cooler than other lightsabers. And also, she's the queen of the Mandalorians, too. I didn't mention that, but she's the queen of the Mandalorians, and she's also only 16 years old. Yeah, she's only 16 years old. She's only 16 years old, and she has this much that's happened to her.
He is partially wrong. Let's take it piece by piece. She is an ex-bounty hunter, but she wasn't in that profession for too long. She works with gangsters? Wrong. Her ex-partner did. Sabine works with the rebels. She wanted to work with gangsters, but she was betrayed by the partner. She's pretty. That's up to your own opinion. I disagree with Ezra on this one. She's trained in hand-to-hand combat, isn't an excellent marksman, because she's Mandalorian. She was trained in that field. It's kind of like the clones in the First Order Stormtroopers, trained from birth. Argue all you want that the Mandalorians were pacifists. Once Maul took over, the Mandalorians became warriors again. But that wasn't a problem, huh? She's a demolitionist. Again, she's Mandalorian. She even explains this. She has nothing under her character. Just watch the episode Trials of the Darksaber, or Out of Darkness, and you'll see that's wrong. She's introverted. Well, so are a lot of people at this age. She gets a lightsaber. Well, she doesn't plan on keeping it, and she found it in Maul's home. Seems kind of logical that she has it. She's an artist, so? She's a queen of Mandalorians. False! Her mother is the leader of her clan. There are many clans in a house, and several houses who are ruled by one man. At this time, Gar Saxon. But it looks like soon it'll be Bo-Katan. And she's 16. No. She's 16 at the beginning of the show, and she's 19 now. So not only is this point false, but it's so horribly biased. Boba Fett was 12 and 13 in the Clone Wars, and he pulled off some good stuff. And Rey was 19, but she still was trained in hand-to-hand combat, and she could use a lightsaber. He also says that Hera is the better role model and better character. No arguments there. He says Kanan is a cool character and gets a lot of good moments. Again, no argument there. But he says Kanan is held back by Ezra and rarely gets attention. False. Season 1 was all about him and Ezra. And the whole point of an apprentice like Ezra is because he gives self-doubt to Kanan. And one of his character arcs is overcoming that doubt and embracing the Jedi he is. And he's really grown as a character. So here we go again. False. He also hates Zeb because he's a brute character. Bias. He hates Zeb also because he doesn't have a stake in the plot and just talks. False. Well, partially. In Season 1 and select episodes of Season 2, he has a stake in the plot, but otherwise, agreed. However, he is the comic relief, and a lot of people like him, myself included. Possible bias, but also false. Then he gets to Ezra. He says no one likes Ezra and that he holds the show back. Not really. He is the main character and drives the plot by his desire to free Lothal. I also know people who like Ezra, or are at least okay with him. And talk about bias, you know how many people hated Ahsoka for the first 3 seasons of the show? They called her the next Jar Jar Binks. Jeepers. And he says Ezra has many topsy-turvy character arcs in the show. The Clone Wars was about Anakin Skywalker. He is the king of a topsy-turvy arc. He has good moments, bad moments, and is portrayed as a good guy, while driving ever so closely to the dark side every time. He does something bad, then pulls out at the end, yet at the end of the show it's episode 3 and that is about his fall. And that's just Clone Wars as well as the prequels. Very biased. He also says episodes like Twin Sons and Blood Sisters are ruined by Ezra. First off, in Twin Sons, we do see Maul shatter mind as he manipulates Ezra throughout the episode, and what you want an episode where it is literally the same basic plot, except it's Maul just wailing around having a temper tantrum until he finds Obi-Wan? That's what you said. Maul is exactly like Vader. Less is more. The more you focus on them, the less they have as an impact in a character. Also, in Blood Sisters, he claims Ezra pulls the focus off of Sabine. He's there for 2 minutes and then is gone. He doesn't pull hardly any focus off Sabine. These points are false. He says no one has a stake in the plot and just talks, mostly referring to Zeb and Ezra. We already covered Zeb, and Ezra drives the plot forward, so false. He says you can't sell Thrawn merchandise. Wrong. YouTubers like Star Wars Explained have Thrawn collectibles on their shelves, and they sell Thrawn merchandise all the time. He has a Funko Pop, and he has 2 minifigures, which I can never find at stores because they're all sold out. He also has a Celebration exclusive, which was popular. The book did well, and he was one of the driving forces of the new Lego set of the Phantom. You can sell Thrawn merchandise. He says they aren't trying to make good stories. I've seen many documentaries, more specifically the Rebels Recon, where they talk about the process of the episode creation. Sounds like they put work into it, alright. Again, a false point. He says they won't try something new, yet the idea of this show is something new. The original trilogy was new. Well, 4, 5, and the majority of 6. They were different and new, but they weren't entirely original. Anyway, more to the point. In the Clone Wars and prequels, they wrote off of those popular characters while creating new ones. This show stars an all-new cast and is by far the most original part of Disney's new canon. I did some more research, by the way. Clone Wars does not have a single episode without a movie character, and 8% of the show's episodes reduce those characters to a cameo. In Rebels, however, 16% of the episodes have legacy characters in them. Only 16. By the way, a legacy character is the movie characters and already popular EU characters like Thrawn. And 22% of the episodes have no legacy characters in them. He says this show is like a dream, empty, and you don't really remember it much. That clearly isn't the case if everyone is whining about it. Besides, there are tons of memorable things from this show. The formal creation of the Rebel Alliance, Vader vs. Ahsoka, Maul vs. Kenobi, Mandalorians, Kanan, his blindness, and Bendu. The Inquisitors, Callus and his defection, which was by far one of the favorite parts. I could go on. I should say, my goal in this video isn't to get you to stop watching Clone Wars or the film. Quite the opposite. It's to get you to embrace Star Wars, not just certain parts of it. A lot of people turn away from new Star Wars after the special editions and the prequels, left a bitter taste in their mouths, and even more turned away once Disney bought it. But now I'm seeing something different. People are accepting of the prequels. They're accepting of the lesser parts of the series. They're removing their nostalgic lessons. They're more open-minded. It's okay to like things. It's okay to dislike things. And it's okay to constructively criticize things too. But it isn't okay to completely shun something for not liking it, or shunning someone else for liking it. I've been called the walking Disney $sign and not being a true Star Wars fan because of statements like these. But maybe the true Star Wars fan isn't someone who berates everything except the original trilogy, or loves the second half of the Clone Wars and hates on Rebels. Maybe the true Star Wars fan is the one who embraces it all, the good and the bad. May the Force be with you. Darth Momo, out. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. If you liked the video, comment down below and hit that like button. Oh, and check out some of my other videos. I'm sure you'll find them a delight.